don't give a crap. I'm not afraid of any kind of sick, but just don't want Mr. King to get it. All right, you're a consumer. How do you control our economy? There's a word.
Choice.
Okay, that's true. Choice, and a fancy word is demand. If the demand is big enough, we can impact products. What do you think I mean by impacting products?
You can either get more or better products.
We can get them to develop, if it's possible, something, and we can increase the amount that's out there. We can increase the number of places you can get it. What else does our demand do? Price. We kind of determine what the price is. There is a level that they have to sell it for. They have to sell it for that much or else they go out of business. But they want to make a profit. We help determine how much profit they make. Because if we're willing to pay for it, that price will gradually go. I mean, whatever the price, if we're willing to pay this, that's what they're going to charge. If we're not, then they have to drop it down and drop it down. They don't want to get to here, but if they have to, they will. And they might lose money on this and make money on this. So we do have some control. All right, the pitcher deal. Tell me about circular flow. What do you know about it?
Flows in a circle.
Tell me about circular flow. What flows in a circle?
Money.
What about it?
It all comes back to
What was the...
Business to home to business.
Right. Stores give money to homes. And homes give money to businesses. Where's the government come into play here?
taxes.
You're right in the middle, taking money from both.
Tariffs.
They take money from businesses. They also take money from homes. If that increases, what happens? What is this going to affect this and this?
Yeah.
Yes. And this will affect this and this. What about regulations? Regulations.
The amount of money they can take, so you're more.
Businesses, you've got to. What if a city says you have to cover your storefronts on Main Street? You have to have covered sidewalks. Does that affect this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which in turn would affect this. Any government regulation could increase the amount of money that government or that it costs for businesses to operate. They could regulate stuff in houses. They could say you can't have this anymore. You got to change this. So the government can take money out of this equation here. More money they take out, the less money is here. They take money out of the river. Are we cool on that? Public goods. We have had a couple little kids' birthday parties at the park in Bridgeport. Why would we have it at the park in Bridgeport?
It's free.
It's free. Right? Do we have to pay to go to the park in Bridgeport? No. So let's go there. Is it free? Where'd that park come from?
Taxpayers.
Taxpayers of Bridgeport funded that park. They continue to fund that park. Do I pay any Bridgeport taxes? Anytime I buy something in Bridgeport, I'm funding a little bit. But I don't pay major taxes in Bridgeport. So they could fence it off, put a gate, and somebody there, they pay someone to watch that, and you would have to show your electric bill to get in. They gave your address. And if you live in Paradise, you don't get to get in. If you live in Chico, you don't get to get in. Would that be financially good for Bridgeport? No. So a public good is something you can't deny to people. Street lights. If you drive through a town you don't live in, do the street lights go off when you go close to them? No, they stay on. No matter if you paid for them or not, they stay on. Parks, sidewalks, all this kind of stuff, roads. These are all public goods, paid for by taxpayers. Taxpayers pay for them. And anybody can benefit from it. Bridges. We even used Bridgeport School a bunch because boys play basketball there. Y'all play, Parker, you played basketball there. I remember you were on the other team one time. First time I ever met y'all, saw y'all, your dad and you in elementary school in Bridgeport. Make sense? All right, free riders. This is very similar. Free riders. Patient, how many times have we ever paid to go watch fireworks? I don't think ever. Have we sometimes gone to watch fireworks? Yeah. We're free riders. We don't help pay for it. We just watch it. If I paid for a fireworks show, okay, is that cheap?
It's not expensive, but it's not cheap.
I mean a fireworks show. I mean not. I don't mean that. I mean, where's the best fireworks show ever? It's within 10 miles of here.
Shane Clayton's house.
What?
Shane Clayton's house.
No, I mean something good.
Oh, he does all of his with computer stuff.
Cottondale Baptist Church. How many of y'all ever seen that?
That's the one I did.
Oh my gosh. I went to it the first time. I was like, oh, okay. It's 20 minutes of finale.
Yeah.
It's 20 minutes of finale. I was tired the first time I went there. At the end, I was like, oh my gosh. Just because it just kept going. And Scott Cox and Ty Cox and all them were running around, just sprinting everywhere, and things are blowing up. And it's like, oh, it's just constant. And it's free. I didn't pay for any of it. Do you even have to go to a fireworks show to see it? No. So, free riders is when something is provided. It's like public goods, but you couldn't stop people from seeing the fireworks show. Make sense? And they didn't pay for it, but they still get to benefit from it. So the public good is like the street light. The free rider is a person that drives through town and didn't have to pay for it, but gets to benefit from that. Austin has air-conditioned buses that run through downtown to take people places. That's amazing. Now, I have helped pay for that a little bit. Bought a hotel there a couple times, bought a supper there a few times. That's something in Austin. Wasn't fireworks. Oh, when I was a little kid, we go to the Ranger game. And we drive on the turnpike, which is now I-20, on 30. And just east of Fort Worth, there was a double drive-in movie theater. And while we drive by, I'd watch the movies for like 45 seconds. You didn't get the sound, but you can't stop people from seeing the drive-in movie. Because if you're close to it, you can see it. Now, I guess you could stop and park and maybe read lips and, you get what you pay for, but the idea of a free rider makes sense. Almost the same thing as a public vehicle. All right. Public sector. And the private sector.
A math multiplier there.
The public sector is government. It's paid for by taxpayer dollars. The private sector. What's the private sector? It's hard to explain it. Wait. Business.
Income.
This you work for the government. Here you work for some business, either yourself or some business. Which one of these is going to do a better job in most things?
Private.
Private sector is going to do the best for most things. Not the military. Not military. Not roads. And it might be good at schools. Just cause. Now, is there mamas out there that could teach their kids? Yes. But at least at a school, I like to think I know what I'm doing here. And I like to think somebody else in the other room knows what they're doing there. It'd be hard to get that level of background in everything, all right? The public sector gets taxpayer dollars. Do they have to do a great job to stay in business? No. They can be mediocre to crappy. What's he messed up on so far? I haven't watched.
Well, the other day he kept around and he admitted to keeping a card so he could remember the amount of COVID-19 deaths. And then there's another.
I'd do that. I would have to do that.
He was sitting in a chair and he goes, I'm willing to take questions if you want me to take questions, and they shut the broadcast off.
Yeah.
So you couldn't take questions.
He's not alone. It's politics. That's all. They have to do a good job or else they go bankrupt. Most times, the government won't go bankrupt. Most times, government programs, most of the times, get more money thrown at them if they don't work. If your business goes under, they don't throw more money at you. I work in the public sector. I work for the government. Taxpayer dollars pay my salary. Most of y'all's family works for somebody or works their own business or works in the private sector. There's a lot more public sector jobs now than there was 100 years ago. Okay. Externalities. Now, I wrote some things down there. What do I write down on the positive externalities?
Real neighbors.
Grill and neighbors. Huh? Tell me about that. Well, you got a grill. What are you doing on the grill?
You can come.
Cooking stuff. right? If the wind's right, if your neighbors are cooking stuff, you can smell it, right? Is that a bad thing? If you smell barbecue cooking, or you smell hamburgers grilling, that's a positive extra. When I cook, and Lexi was in here, first year we lived over there, and I said, Lexi, do you mind when I cook hamburgers or something? She goes, no, I like it. And I invite her over, come and say, if you want to, come on. I don't cook so they can smell the cooking. Right? I cook because I'm cooking. That is a positive externality. It's something I didn't mean to happen, but it happens and I can't stop it. Okay, so positive externality, the grill and the neighbors. I'm not cooking for that reason, but it happens. There was a downtown Fort Worth when I was a kid, up until I got to college, I guess. Mrs. Baird's Bakery was downtown. And you'd drive by and you could smell the bread cooking. That's not a bad smell. Good bread cooking is not a bad smell. They didn't cook the bread so we could smell it. That was a positive externality of cooking the bread. Now what's on the other side, what I got wrote down over there?
Fit and wise water treatment.
Okay, you go to Fit and Wise. You all been to Fit and Wise before? Gone to the hospital? In the summertime? You walk up, you get out of the car, what hits you?
Gross.
That water treatment smell. In the summertime, on those hot, muggy days, there's just a real light southern, that's the worst. You walk out, oh, okay? They don't do that so it stinks up the hospital. That's just a negative externality of having the water treatment plant. Make sense? When I was in school, I was in college, football field was here. There was a street, there was apartments, there was a street, and there was a craft factory. So a couple blocks away to the south, there's a craft factory. It's not there anymore. The building's there. And on a good day, on a not hot, muggy day, depends on what they were making too, it smelled like cooked spaghetti. Now that's not a good smell, and it's not a bad smell, it's just a smell, right? You just cook the spaghetti, not the sauce, not all the stuff, just the spaghetti. On a bad day, in August, when it's humid, and they're making the right kind of stuff, sometimes they make mayonnaise, I don't know if this is when that happened, it smelled like somebody threw up right there, and it had been there a while. On game days, I don't know if the school will have a deal with the factory. They would crank that sucker up, and it stunk to high heaven. Now, we had been around it, and it wasn't a smell you never could just completely get used to it, but we were immune to it. The other team would get off the bus and it just, ruined their day. That was a negative externality. So if you ever buy a house and you see craft plant, maybe don't buy the house next to the craft plant. Is everybody cool on that? Negative, positive? Subsidy. A subsidy is when the government pays money to an individual or to a business to do something or not do something. Best example of this is farming.
Isn't everything a bribe?
It kind of is. But in the 30s, the Dust Bowl was caused by what? Over farming, over plowing. And they plowed everything under, the rains didn't come, and then the dirt just blew away. The government stepped, and this is something we can argue about, but there's good and there's bad to this. The government decided we need to kind of oversee farming and kind of control farming. Because if we have too much production, what's that going to do to farmers? If they produce too much corn, the price of corn drops and they can't make a living. you don't want too much or too little. So the government decides we want to try to make production steady. We want to kind of keep it level, not let it spike and drop and spike and drop. Now there's things you can't do anything about the weather. But they would go to this farmer and say, okay, you've got 1,000 acres. We want you to plow, we're gonna put 250 of it. You can grow corn. Grow 250 in corn, grow 250 in wheat. I can't spell wheat, whatever. 250 in soybeans, and leave the rest empty. And we will pay you a certain amount to not grow anything here.
I think I've heard of that.
And it makes sense. We're gonna, and they would, they'll do things like,
The government.
Yeah, when they, like our neighbors, across from our ranch,
yeah,
they overused all that land. So, and then the guy that owned it died, and his son took it over. He was gonna go get some like ag exemption thing
Right.
where the government pays you like, cause he was gonna have to have an ag exemption thing or whatever, cause he had cattle, but he said he's gonna get rid of them because like there's no grass there.
Right.
So the government's gonna pay him just to leave everything off. Of it.
yes, yeah. And the point of that is this, to kind of plan out how much corn, how much wheat, how much soybeans we got out there. Try to keep a hold of that. So the farmers might get subsidized by the government. Does that kind of make sense? Sometimes they subsidize. Now here's where the controversy comes in and people get ticked. Sometimes they will subsidize the oil companies. Now, if I say oil company, you think mega rich. Are the oil companies mega rich right now? No, they're not. And there might be times where the government will say, look, if you will go out, you don't have the money to go out and drill right now, but if you will go out and drill, we'll pay you so much for every time you try to drill. You know, now, right or wrong, good or bad, but that's what a subsidy is. Government has never subsidized anything of mine. Don't have nothing they could subsidize. And is this the last one? What else we got? All right, absolute and comparative advantages. An absolute advantage would be, I live here. My neighbor lives here. Let's do this. My neighbor lives here. There's oil on my neighbor's land. There's none on mine. They have an absolute advantage over me when it comes to oil. There's none on mine. There's some on theirs. They didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. It just happened. The Middle East has an absolute advantage over Japan. Middle East has oil, Japan doesn't. That's an absolute advantage. When you have access to something, if you want to start a spring water company and you have a spring on your property, you can do that. I don't have a spring on my property. I can't do that. I don't have to buy property with a spring. You have an absolute advantage if you have a spring on your property that you could sell for water. Now comparative. Let me double check, make sure. I hate when I do this. A failure. All right, I am Alright? Let's say, alright, Europe supposedly is good at chocolate. There's some European countries that are like famous for chocolate. Alright? I don't know why. Comparative advantage means you can produce something cheaper. Better, maybe cheaper than somewhere else. You don't own all the oil reserves, but maybe you develop a way to refine the oil better than some other place. Or you find this process where it's cheaper for you to refine the oil than somebody else. This is comparative advantages is because of something you can do. You have some sort of control over it. That makes sense? You can do it better than somebody else. Absolute advantage, you're there. You live here, so you have the absolute, you own this, so you have the absolute advantage. Does that make sense? Okay. Good enough. Got a quiz tomorrow. Got some time to yourself.